You've been playing guitar for years, so why do you still sound like a beginner? Why does everything feel stiff and robotic, and no matter how much you practice, you never really break through? It's not because you're not talented, it's not because you need more expensive gear, and it's definitely not because you don't have what it takes. The truth is, most players get stuck not because of what they're learning, but because of how they're practicing. In fact, you might be reinforcing bad habits on the guitar every single time you pick it up, but there's one simple shift that can totally start rewiring your playing. By the way, I've got something to show you that will really take this to the next level. So stick around and I'll show you at the end of this video. First, let's fix this once and for all. So I want to start off with step one here, which is going to be the 60-second fix. And I'm going to call this one breaking the autopilot trap. Most players make mistakes unconsciously. Every time they play the same sloppy chord change, the same stiff rhythm, they're actually reinforcing those bad habits. The first step is awareness. You have to be honest with yourself and see where you're making mistakes. So whenever you play a song that you're working on, anytime you make a slight error, make a mental note of it or maybe even write it down. Start to try to see if these are consistent errors happening all the time, and then we need to deal with those errors. Now this is where step 2 and step 3 come in. Step 2 is going to be the slow motion fix. If something feels tricky or you're making a mistake while playing it, all that means is you need to slow it down to the point where you're not making any errors. So for example, if you're working on a chord strumming song and one of the chord transitions is just a little bit slow and you're not nailing it, what you need to do is slow down your playing so that you're nailing the hardest transition. This rewires your muscle memory for accuracy first, which is what you want. Speed comes later. We want accuracy right now. So say I'm working on the verse of Brown Eyed Girl and it's looking something like this. All right, so every transition there was nailed except my G to C. That one was just a little bit slower. So what I'm gonna have to do then is slow the whole thing down to the point where I'm nailing that G to C, even if it's like this. Up, down, up. Even if it's uncomfortably slow, play the whole thing at that speed. Rewire your brain for accuracy. And then from there, slowly start to speed it back up. But I really want you to take your time with this step. Don't force the speed, force the repetition of playing at perfect accuracy at slow tempo, and the speed will naturally start to come. And then we have step 3, which is the micro looping method. Now, what we mean by the micro looping method is to isolate your problems. Instead of running an entire song front to back, figure out where the tricky sections are and isolate them. So again, if we go back to that Brown Eyed Girl example, and I'm really struggling with that G to C, something I could do instead of going G, C, G, D, running the whole progression through, is I'll just isolate G to C. I'll pretend G to C is its own song, its own little micro loop, as we call it here. So instead of going G, C, G, D, I'm just gonna sit here slowly doing the micro loop on G to C, getting this one nailed. And just back and forth. You can slow down if you need to. You want to practice smart, not hard. Every minute of your practice time needs to be spent productively. And if you do the micro looping method, you'll get through songs so much quicker and you'll never have that problem where strumming and rhythm and transitions sound a little bit stiff. And by the way, this goes for anything. I know I'm talking about chord strumming and stuff, but the same thing could apply to lead guitar, right? To other kind of more advanced rhythm guitar stuff that doesn't involve open chords. The micro looping method is always your best friend for getting better on the guitar. Now, the other day I was working with one of our VIP club members, a guy named John, and he was telling me that he's been playing for 20, 30 years, and he's always had a problem with a few certain chord changes. He's always had a problem with staying on rhythm, and he had just never done this three-step method. He had never identified his problems, he had never slowed it way down, and he had never done the looping method. Once he implemented these things, he was all of a sudden better. Like, it was not all of a sudden, like, it took him a little practice, but it was such a short period of time that he improved so much. It was literally the missing piece all this time, was just how he was practicing. All right, so let's talk about what you just learned. If you've been playing guitar for years, but don't sound like you've been playing guitar for years, it's not because you lack talent, it's just because of how you're practicing. We fixed that today by identifying your problems, showing you the slowdown fix, and the micro looping method. These 3 steps will fix whatever you're working on. This will instantly rewrite your muscle memory the right way. But this is just the start. If you want to completely transform your playing, I've got a free step-by-step training for you. This training really walks you through every technique like this and a bunch of others so that you can finally start playing with confidence. So click here right now or scan the QR code. You'll also find a link in the description of this video. Don't wait on this. You'll never look at your guitar practicing the same after this. And I'll catch you in the next lesson.